Okay, everyone, it is gosh, I don't even know how many times I've been doing this, but we're talking about consent today. And this is a talk about my manual, Manifesting Magic Manual. And it's really about stepping into your own power and stop apologizing for who you are and what you want or believe, and just really use the tools that I'm going to give you in this manual to help you really feel into who you are. And consent is one of those languages that you can, once you understand what consent is, you can read kind of the signs around you, but inside your body as well, as how you're perceiving things and what that's going to tell you, what you're saying to yourself, what you're hearing from others, will kind of give you some guidance on uh, whether or not yes, no, maybe, and then working through that. So, okay, so here we are. And if you're here with me today, thank you so much. If you're watching this live, again, thank you. Please share it with anybody that you think it relates to. I will be putting these live chats on YouTube and sectioning them out. So if you want it to be a little bit more specific and you want to go back to that part that you remember, just go to my YouTube channel at Ray. It's an @ sign, Ray Life Coaching. And okay, so here we are. I am going to share my screen of the manual. I'm going to show you how to connect to the manual on your own, so that you don't just have to watch these live videos. You can do it on your own. And we are also, at some point, I will be doing some virtual workshops as well as in-person workshops. I'm in Connecticut, United States, but I do want to offer it to people who are not in Connecticut or can't travel to me. So let's start here. Okay, so I'm going to share. Here we go. Okay. So as you can see, I have the manual up. So when you are able to log in to my website, go into my website, I'll just do that now. I'm trying to move stuff around here on my page. Wanting to move. You would want to go, sorry, you're going to go to the free resources tab on the right, and you would click download. And when you go to download, it's going to ask you a few questions. And then you will get an email with a link. That link will bring you to this page, which, excuse me, let me just reduce that so it doesn't look funny. This page, which will first ask you to put in a code that I will provide you via an email, and then it will bring you to this page. So pretty much anything on that free resources page right now is available. So if you choose any one of these, it's going to bring you eventually to a page on my website that will give you all of my free resources. But at some point that might not be the case. So when you're doing this is probably the best time to go and get the free resources. So once you're here, you say free stuff. What we're going to be talking about today is Manifesting Magic Manual. So if you go there, you're going to press this download button and it'll bring you straight to what you see on your screen right now, which is the manual. Just go there. Here you go. So consent. Last weeks or months, we worked on the other parts of the manual, which were codependency, no more. And then we worked on attachment. So attachment styles. So you can find that in the live section of my Facebook as well as YouTube. As I said, it's sectioned out. And today we're going to start on consent and boundaries, starting with the consent. And it is a somewhat long section. So I have a feeling that I won't be able to get through all of consent. And just so you know, this manual is like the precursor to a larger workshop. And it's a lot. It's a lot all in one. And that's why eventually I hope to kind of section out workshops so that we take one thing at a time for a longer period of time, mattering upon what you're interested in. And so here we go. What is consent? So what is consent? Everyone probably has their own idea. We've heard a lot of people say, what is it? Like ecstatic consent. There's a word for it. What is it when you're like, it's like definite yes? Well, I'm gonna kind of go against that a little bit because I think consent is not so black and white like that. Sometimes we consent into things, but we're not really sure, you know? And so knowing that is important, obviously. And so we're going to go over some of the reasons why we might want to say, yeah, I think I'll try it. I'm just going to work through this process and understand what is making me hesitant. Okay, so what is consent? I'm just going to read this out loud so you see it. Consent is a continuous and pragmatic method of communication involving regular check-ins with oneself and others to discuss boundaries, capabilities, and available resources. So that pretty much says what I just stated, which is consent is not so black and white. It's not binary, right? It's not so like, I'm so excited. Yes, that might be true, but that's a lot of my yeses aren't over there. You know, a lot of my yeses are kind of like, yeah, not sure yet, but I'm curious, right? So regular check-ins with oneself, regular check-ins. I think that's a really big, that's so important because I think we say, oh, they said yes, or I said yes. So it's got to be yes forever, right? We aren't checking in. We're not wondering, being curious. We're not believing that ourselves or others are changeable. And that's part of the problem of consent. I think once we believe that it's not going to change at the flip of a switch, it can change so quickly, then we're not really being realistic and honest with ourselves or others. So to discuss boundaries, capabilities, and available resources, because sometimes things change in these areas, right? So it entails a commitment to attentive listening. And I don't know if you have gone through my confidence toolkit, but it's really a huge part is listening. That the confidence toolkit is about how to listen to yourself in a way that, and also alter some of that in the way that you want, but being able to really hear it and accept what's happening. So a commitment to attentive listening. So a commitment to your own confidence, really, that extends beyond verbal expression to include body language, gaze, prosody, and other subtle and often unconscious cues. So I want to tell you that what is written right here is coming from my teacher, and their name is Mia Shaster. And you can find them on Consent Wizardry. They also, this information is based on some of the studies that they have done with or under the Wheel of Consent from Betty Martin. So we're not going to really delve too deep on that, but this is where all of this comes from. Okay. And so consent serves as a journey towards self-awareness, functioning as a language that can be embraced and manifested in one's actions. The embodiment of consent reflects a fluency in this language. So embodiment is a really good word to understand how consent can be seen, because we really understand it in and within our bodies. And first we listen, then we kind of question, and being self-aware and understanding what that language that we're listening to is really telling us is so important. And once we can really hear what that language is telling us, we can then use it to take action. And that action is really us embodying it, right? Really like utilizing it. Okay, so I'm gonna expand this so that you can see this iceberg. Consent, iceberg, permission. So permission is interesting, right? I mean, we see it as like the top, but that's the things that we may be able to see, right? The contracts, no means no, the very like kind of black and white version of consent. And that's what we see and what we hear consent is about. We also may equate consent with sex or touch or those kinds of things, but consent is like in everything we do. And it's about our decision making in general, and what we decide to be even thinking, right, in ourselves. We're consenting, we're allowing and saying, yes, that can pass in my mind, that can continue happening in my mind. I consent to that by just not doing anything about it. Okay. So underneath that iceberg in the water is emotional attunement. What does that even mean? Agreements between people, preparing the nervous system, content warnings. It's like having enough information to make a decision, right? Because sometimes things are withheld. And that makes it so that although we may be saying yes, we don't even know what we're saying yes to. I think there's a lot of things that in our world we don't even question because that's just how it's been done. We don't question, oh, well, what does it actually entail? What am I actually agreeing to? So content warnings are kind of make me think of that. Facial expressions, body language, I'm going to X, gaze, eliminating surprises and managing expectations. This is really interesting. I was talking on my live chat last week, I believe, about what is polyamory, jealousy. And if you listen to that, it's a little bit about eliminating surprises and managing expectations, kind of like giving a little bit of forethought about what the people involved or the situation and the person involved may expect, what's expected of that person when they say yes, or no, or whatever, and eliminating the surprises that may occur if we don't have that information. Capacity, limitations, and resources. We talked about that in the description. Breath. It's interesting. Power dynamics. So some of these things are like, do I have the capacity? Am I, and we all have to answer these questions for ourselves. And this is really about self-awareness in the end. Okay. So I'm going to go to Planned Parenthood's description of consent. And freely given, so FRIES, reversible, informed, embodied, and specific. So let's just kind of give a definition for these. Freely given, no coercion, no pressure. Person is equally empowered to say yes or no. The gray zone, there is always a power dynamic. So there's this place where we sometimes don't even realize how we may be perceived by those we give or ask of, and how that may sway them due to our power in a certain situation in their minds, or just in society in general. For instance, being white, or being an employer, or being older. There might be multiple things that play into people making a decision. Reversible. You can change your mind. And this is kind of what I was talking about, like checking in a lot more. I think I myself need to be doing that more. Can you change your mind? Just because you started doesn't mean you have to finish. Informed. The information you need to give consent is provided, such as how many people are at the event, where it is, just knowing, and what is expected of you when you attend. This is just an example. Embodied this way, enthusiastic, but that is unrealistic. So this is not enthusiastic consent, and maybe a people-pleasing reflex, like enthusiasm may actually be a response, a fawn response, instead of a true yes. We are connected. So fawn is our, what's that? Nervous system reaction. Feign, fawn, freeze, fight, flee, or something like that. Just so you're understanding. Maybe a people-pleasing reflex, and we are connected, present, and give time to carefully consider how we feel. And so to get back into our bodies, we may need the time. And this is something that I think I learned last week for myself. I keep on telling myself I need way more time than I'm giving myself before I speak, before I think I know what my feelings actually mean, all of the above. Specific. This is about what is specifically involved when agreeing to something. For example, when I go to that party with you, who is driving? Who will be there? For how long? If I need to leave, will you be okay with that, etc. It's like all the details. And sometimes we don't know these questions, right? We get into a situation, we go, okay, next time, be more specific. So now we're going to get into the yes to no spectrum. And again, this was taught to me through Mia Shaster from Share the Load Incorporated, or Consent Wizardry. And so the spectrum is yes, and no, and then how you feel when things are said. And you'll usually find yourself saying some words when you're describing a situation. You'll find yourself being on one side or the other, or kind of like maybe, and that can kind of tell you what might be going on. So we're going to say yes. On the closer to yes side, your independence. What would that feel like to me tends to be more the question, and the curiosity, maybe a little bit more of an excitement, like, learn something new. Yes, it's going to be hard, but I'm more curious about it. I'm more interested in it. I'm more motivated. Challenge, yes. And there may be risk, but I'm still thinking about me. And it feels, yes, uncomfortable, but it might not feel unsafe. And so what determines on being unsafe? And funny enough, I think it has to do with connection. And so when we go straight to the no side, you'll find that it has more to do with others than it really does to you. And so there's a disconnect, right? When we start thinking more about someone else we haven't even really asked ourselves, well, what do I want? Not about them, but what do I want? Like why am I going straight to them? So the words that might come up are should. Maybe you're backtracking and explaining and justifying why you need to be doing this or not doing this or whatever. Um, if I do not do this, then, and so it's more about like what will happen to me. And most likely it has something to do with somebody else. So there's a form of codependency that happens here when you're more on that side. If you're feeling like you should say yes, but it's really a no, these are the things that will come up. And what will they think of me tends to be the question. Or like I try to give my own example. If you look back again to the what is polyamory, jealousy thing, there is this place where we can put ourselves in, um, oh, I'm not an, I don't see myself as an expert, but this is something I want to do for a living, right? Is to help people get through some of these nuanced issues in relationships. And here I am having a problem with jealousy, and I'm talking about it that day. And so there's this place where what will people think of me comes up for sure. When I'm codependent on doing something I love, just and then judging myself, there's a little bit of that. And so this is consent with myself, right? So how are we doing this with ourselves is the question, because it's always with ourselves, but sometimes we get the outside world in and think that it has to do with them. And when in reality, it's really about how we're showing up for ourselves. So on the no side, when you're being asked or you're asking yourself and you think you should do something, most likely that's a no, possibly. Then you may actually be in an unsafe scenario. And that's where your nervous system may go. And your automatic reaction, like I was talking about, fawn, feign, whatever, might come in mattering upon certain power dynamics, certain who you're talking to. Well, there's so many facets to this. This is not a black and white situation, but it is interesting to kind of look at on the smallest scale of your life. So we're going to look at some phrases that come up. So on the yes side, there's spark curiosity, right, about ourselves. And so one of them is, I wonder what it would feel like, or what it would be like if. I wonder what it would be like if. Will I regret not doing it? Like, it's all about me here. Like, yes, it's risky, but will I regret doing it? Yes, it's scary and it's uncomfortable, but will I regret not doing it? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. And this is just about me, right? So just coming out as polyamorous was this question for sure. Even doing a swing dance concert, contest was like, will I regret it? Yeah, probably. So I should do it. I should do it, right? Like, I want to do it. I'm gonna just fall into these things that are like, yeah, I'm gonna make mistakes. I might even, who knows? It's okay because I'm making, I'm chancing, I'm risking, and I feel like it's worth it, right? The trade for the risk. And as coming out as polyamorous, yes, that also was a huge risk. I could have lost my family. Who knows? I could have lost clients, money. If I was renting and someone found out, I probably could have lost my home. There's a lot of risk there, but you have to know, like, will I regret it? And is it worth it for me based on that risk? So worrying about fitting in is on the no side, with them who, and it's like the other. And what will they think of me if, what will happen to me if and sometimes it doesn't show up as clearly. Like, I think sometimes our minds are very tricky. They like to trick us. But you will notice if you're trying to like backtrack, explain why you should do something, or, you know, justifying why you're doing what you're doing, then there may be a place where you need to take a moment and pay attention. Okay, so we are going to do some exercises, choices, exercise your choice. So consent is really about choosing, right? It's about making a decision and really feeling into it, understanding, and learning from it. Because, yeah, you might choose wrong. Well, I say wrong, but nowhere is wrong. It's all, life is a journey, life is a learning situation, right? So let's say no choice involves exercise. So we're going to journal or share a choice that is a definite yes for you. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do an example out of the blue, like I always do. So let me get myself off of the screen there. Okay. So journal a definite yes for you. So let me think of a definite yes for me. Let's make it simple. If someone said, um, I I would like to give you $1 million, and I'd be like, yes, with no strings attached. Yes, definite yes. Why do you think that is the case for you? Well, if these are easy things, right? Um, so if there were no attachments to the money, meaning like all of that. So that's the information I would need, right? Like what, okay, you give that to me, but is there something else I need to know? And then there may be a tax situation I need to know. Maybe there's, a whole bunch of that. What is the feelings on the list that come up for you? Okay, so I provide a feelings list, and let's hope this clicks over. Okay. And of course I can't. Oh, there you go. So a feeling would be like elated, maybe appreciation, like appreciated, giddy, probably. So it would be all on like a really positive side right here. And then, sorry, this is NVC feelings list. And you can find it on the nvc.org website. And the second page is like your pain list. And that kind of tells you, like, if you're not feeling too good, that's probably where you kind of are more on the no side, right? You're like, hey, don't think that might be a good idea for me. Oh, hang on. You didn't see that because I didn't share that. I apologize. Let me share that screen. So the feelings list, go back. Sorry for the flipping. Not codependency, we're not attachment. Okay, so the feelings list is right here, and I just clicked on that. So if you do get the manual, then all you have to do is click on that. And let me go to this one. Okay, so this is the feelings list that pops up when you click on that link. And I was just saying elated, and the second page, you have kind of like the lower level feelings, right? That feel really, ugh. Okay. So what is the feeling that comes up for you? And then write down 3 sensations that arise in your body. This is really a practice. And it's good to start with something that's like, yes, absolutely. I want that $1 million. Thank you. you know, um, and write down 3 sensations that arise in your body. Well, you can kind of see what changed in me, right? So external, you can even do this in the mirror. You can record yourself to kind of see how different you look when you are in the whoo, yay, yes, I want that sensation. And write down 3 sensations in the body. Okay. So I feel it like just come up right here. My heart is open. I'm like smiling. And it'll be interesting to see how the no comes up differently. My energy seems like a little bit more higher, not in a nervous way, but more in like a like, yes, I'm gonna go and do that and get that. Okay, so do this for your absolute no. Oh geez, that's that's a hard one. Um, so my absolute no. Oh, if someone says, "Would you like some shrimp?" I'd be like, "No, yeah, uh, definitely no." Journal a shared choice. Okay, no for you. Why do you think that this is the case? Well, shrimp is I'm allergic, and I will feel horrible if I take it. So I absolutely have to say no. What is the feeling that comes up for you? Well, this is yeah, it's sometimes hard to say a no, even when it's an easy no, because that was an easy no, but I still found myself almost apologizing for it. And so that's important to know, to be like, that was an easy no, and I had a hard time with that. Um, so, and let's look at the feelings list again. So it was slightly ashamed or embarrassed or a little guilty. Funny enough, there was a little bit of like, oh, self-conscious. Yeah. And and that's okay. You know, you can have that feeling with a no, even when it's like, yeah, I absolutely don't want that. You know, I know, yay, I know I don't want that. Um, there's a little bit of pride there too. It's funny, you can have multiple conflicting feelings at the same time. So that is okay. What's most important is that you know it, right? And that you're aware of it. And it will help you understand. The more we do these practices for ourselves, it'll help you understand, oh, like that's not that bad. It's just that this is just a habit of mine to feel guilty. And the pride is there because I know my no, which is great. Okay, so write down 3 sensations that arise in your body. Okay, so I'm just going to do that again. Someone asks, do you want to have the shrimp? And me being no. So what arises is like here, like a little bit of a tension, like, uh-oh, gotta protect myself a little bit. Like someone might be upset that I can't eat that wonderful shrimp. Um, and a little bit like tightness, a little bit less breath, less breathing capacity, not as open maybe. Um, feel a little bit of a tension happening in my shoulders, and for such a small no, right? So this is great to do with partners or in a group. I offer it up to you all for whatever thing that you're doing. But I would appreciate if you asked, told people about my manual. And we're going to move on, but I would love for you to, in the comments, tell me how this worked for you. Because I think it's really helpful to kind of get back into the body as to how just yes and no changes everything, even if it's easy or hard. Um, or like, yeah, even if it's the easy yes or an easy no. Okay, so decisions pretty much seems like the same thing as choice. But, when I think of a decision, I think of it's like almost more of an outside thing. Like a choice is like someone's almost like I'm being given something rather than I'm deciding something. And deciding feels a little bit more like mine, strangely enough, but that exercise your ability to decide. So, what do you say to yourself or others to deter that determines a yes? Okay. So, write or tell a story about a time you were curious, wanted to learn more, and was wanting to be challenged. Okay. So, I'm just going to give you an example from my own experience. Write or tell, I'm like write or tell a story about the time you were curious and wanted to learn more and was wanting to be challenged. Um, Curious, wanted to learn more. Well, I always go back to polyamory, like when it appeared for me. So, but that's kind of a big one. Um, so let's say like when someone told me just the word polyamory, it definitely was like, I'm curious, I want to learn more. And I think I'm up for like the challenge. And that took like a year, right? So that's like a span of time. Some of it might be like, oh, I want to do something that's really hard, but I'm curious enough and wanted to learn more to see if I could do that thing. One of them was when I was in college, I really wanted to travel on my own in United States. So I, did that even if all the people around me said it wasn't a good thing. They didn't think it was safe. But I was on the other side, right? Like they said this, and I was on the yes side of curiosity and interested. I thought it would help me feel more confident in myself, and really learn something about myself. Explore what made you feel that way. Like what made me feel curious outside of the challenges or this, those around me saying, oh, it's not going to work. Well, it's for me on both fronts, polyamory and just going on a trip by myself during college. It was really like the question is, am I going to regret not doing this? So that's why I was curious. Like I did ask myself that question, like what are my bucket lists? And I'm like, oh yeah, this I guess this really is a part of a future I've always thought about but didn't realize. Um, Looking back, if you knew more or less, would you have chosen differently? No. But there may be things that you do say yes to. Um, yeah, so interesting. Okay, do this for the no statements. So write or tell a story about a time you felt like you should, you deferred to others, justified why, or worried what would happen if you didn't. Oh, it's funny. On the no side, I can think of like smaller things, strangely enough, um, which have a stronger feeling too at the same time. So most recently, I've been noticing I have strong FOMO in general, like fear of missing out. And and wanting to be included tends to be a part of that, feeling like I want to fit in, I want to be a part of someone's life. Um, I want to experience them in that scenario. There's so many reasons, right? So those are kind of justifications for making myself do something that I actually might not enjoy. And the other person or people who I'm doing that with might not enjoy me doing that with them because of that. Right. So, and I may also feel obligated. So for me, there's like, maybe someone asked me out to do something and I'm like, God, I already put on my calendar that I was going to go do this class, but I feel like, or I was going to do something good for myself finally on that day, but I don't have much time with this person and they're offering up something that seems really sweet. But there's this place where I'm feeling like if I don't say yes, then I'll never get that opportunity with them, or I won't show, I don't, there's so many, right? This is all justification, worrying about what other people will think, what will happen, and that I should do something. It comes up a lot for me. And it's something I realize I really need to work more on, in a way that um, find ways to like relieve myself of that feeling somehow. So explore what makes you feel that way. It's really FOMO, but it's really about belonging, you know. And I talked about this in the polyamory live chat last week about what certain things, what sparks like traumatic events or emotions in one may maybe like those pinpoints to topics that you need to work on. One of them for me is family right now. And so it's really delving into your feelings and what comes up. Like, is there history? Is, you know, that just so happens to like apply to all of these things with multiple people. It's not just one person, or it is just one person, they spark that in you. Looking back, if you knew more or less, would you have chosen differently? So, so I'm going to be specific on the story. Let's say I go to some event with a partner, and you know, I have this feeling in my body when they ask me that says, oh God, this might not be good for you, you know, and I voice it. I choose to go anyway, you know. I go through that journey and explore what that means for me and why. And it really matters what happens during that. You know, there are things that might come up for me that will tell me, what is it that I'm looking for? Is it about the event? Is it about my relationship with someone or the people who are at the event? Um, so sometimes I don't regret doing that, because it helped me explore what truly is the issue for me, around like sometimes I need confirmation why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Um, and so that might be okay, but the learning process in between, um, of making a decision and saying no to something is, it's a hard one. It's something that I'm still working on. So this is actually a really difficult question. What information would have made this no a a maybe or a yes? Um, so interesting. I'm going to start with the yes exercise. So if let's say I was choosing to go across country, I was backpacking when I was in college. And if I didn't get the things done I thought I needed to feel safe, which was arrange my vacation in such a way that I knew I knew certain information ahead of time, and had planned that out. If I hadn't gotten that done, I might have not gone, you know, but I knew ahead of time that's what I needed to do. So, um, you know, it probably would have been more of a no or a maybe if I hadn't gotten those checklist things done for myself, um, to keep myself feeling more safe and just uncomfortable, not unsafe, right? Um, Now, when it comes to the no statement, it's, oh, heard to others and justified or worried about what happened if you didn't or did. So, me saying yes, it would have been like if I had said no to going to an event because my gut said, oh, this might not be good for you. And I kind of explain this like sometimes the feeling in me I don't understand yet, and I almost make myself go just to see why. Because I'm like, why am I feeling this way? Like, I know I need to, it would be nice to just like say know, but a part of me sometimes is curious enough to discover what's really happening. Um, and sometimes that doesn't always work, but if I say no with that feeling, and what would make me say yes, maybe, is probably learning from that situation of just like going to traveling and knowing what I need to make myself feel more safe. First, you have to know why you feel unsafe, right? So in that situation, I think I didn't know why I felt unsafe. Um, and some feeling unsafe might be like so might be something that you would never think or no one else would understand. And that's okay, right? But you need to understand. So, for instance, let's say going to an event with a partner. And when you go to certain events with that partner, they 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 may act completely differently than you are used to, and you don't feel connected, and you need a certain level of connection, and that feels unsafe to you. Like, okay, I'm here because you asked me. I'm here because I wanted to be here with you and I wanted to see you enjoy this. But I noticed that like you almost don't even want, like, you're so separate from me in a certain way that that's what makes me feel unsafe. Makes me feel like, all these feelings come up like, whoa, um, like I'm alone, right? So feeling alone when you're actually going with someone to enjoy it with them, but you don't feel it, there's a with, might bring up unsafeness in you. And sometimes you can't make someone else do the things that you may need in that circumstance, and the acceptance needed to be in that situation and say no might be really difficult because it might say something else. It might bring you to another place, um, about just the relationship in general. So yeah, these are hard topics because saying yes and no is not always about just that moment, right? It may be about how it trickles down or trickles around. It doesn't have to be down, but it trickles to other things. It's connected to the rest of your life. It's not segregated and separated. And so it's very understandable that we may not say yes or no, because in us somewhere, maybe not consciously, understands how to affect other things, like a domino effect, right? So how does this relate to the serenity prayer and what we can control or own? So I'm going to go back to the serenity prayer, and that was in the um, codependency no more section. And find it where I put it. I thought it was in the codependency. Oh, here it is. Okay. So grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I'm asking, how does the yes and no spectrum relate to the serenity prayer and the control we have of ourselves, others, and the wisdom that's needed? So I'm just going to kind of give you some thoughts around that as to how that could be related, um, for you, for myself. So let me just go back. Okay, so consent and the spectrum. So wisdom to know the things. Oh, now I'm going to forget the Serenity Prayer. Um, that's just how that works for me. Um, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Okay, so to accept the things I cannot change. So I believe on the no spectrum is really the things you cannot change. You know, it's the others, it's the other in general. You have no control over anybody else. And it's kind of what I was saying before is, um, you know, acceptance, accept the things I cannot change. And the wisdom to know the things I can, what is it? Accept the things I cannot change. Change the things I don't, I forgot, now I forgot it. But on the other side is like, once you start focusing on yourself and really know where you stand, that's what you can change. You know, your feelings and your thoughts, that's yours. And how it relates to the outside, what you're seeing, that's your perception. Um, and, but also you are able to play with that in a way, really play with it, meaning you can play with it by seeing how it is when you say no. And that is actually an exercise I would like to state before we leave, because we only have like a few more minutes. Let's go. Okay, so we're gonna continue with this. We're gonna do the will of consent next month. Um, so what differentiates uncomfort from unsafe? So change, progress, growth are uncomfortable. Unsafe is where trauma is possible, possibly due to a lack of support. Okay, think of a time when you changed your mind and the experience was no longer safe or started to become more safe. And what changed to make that occur, do you think? So write or discuss when you have felt uncomfortable, but you learned, changed, and had your curiosity fulfilled. And how did you feel in your body afterward? What results did it manifest afterward? So I'm not going to do that today, but this kind of gives you an idea of the next steps that we're going to go over in next month. And we're going to talk about the differences between uncomfort and unsafe, resilience, exercise your resilience. Do you do the same for what made you feel unsafe as well? So we're just going to do that. Then the consent wheel will go over. And this is the consent wheel. And then we're going to talk about scenarios related to the consent wheel, which I think you'll really like, really puts it into clear. And then we're going to talk about embodiment and body scan and how that can help. So that's next month. And I'm just going to turn off the share. And we have a few more minutes. I wanted to propose a little exercise, something I need to do as well, which is test it out and play with it. So playing with, there's two exercises I'm going to give you. One is, you know, go to a restaurant and order something. And then once you order it, maybe you get it, you could cancel halfway through. Be like, oh gosh, I really realized I read the description and I realized I can't have blah, blah, blah. And just say that. Don't try to do your best to not say sorry. Notice how you feel. And it doesn't have to be this, it could be something else. You could buy something and return it. You could, someone asks you to go for a walk, say no, like could be something really, could be something as small as you can think of, but saying no specifically to something that you may normally say yes to, may not do anything about, um, and just test it out. Uh, there was something else. Oh, yeah. The second one is ask a question, assuming a no to somebody. It's like, for instance, you don't want that water, do you? And see how that goes. So for instance, if, okay, I'm going to have another exercise, but see how it goes if you assume a no. For instance, like, you, you don't, you don't want me to go with you, right? You know, or that's not something you want. Or when you ask and someone says no to you, say thank you. So that's the third exercise. So just say thank you for letting me know. And if you can do this with something that's you kind of know that they're going to say no to, this will be helpful. Like ask them kind of a question that you most likely, or you're like, they're definitely going to say no, but you're kind of doing this as an exercise, right? You're playing with it. So those are the three exercises. The first one is say no to something you don't normally say no to and make it small, and with maybe people or things that um, are unconsequential, and just notice how you feel and just go through that body scan, really understanding, okay, how do I feel and why do I feel that way and where is it in my body and what's happening? And then ask a question, assuming a no, in a way that's like, yeah, you don't want to do that, right? And just see what happens. And then the third one is um, ask a question that you expect a no to, but you really are like, make it sound like you really want them or want something. And when they say no, say, thank you so much for letting me know. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming and or watching my live video about consent. This is the first half of the consent part of my Manifesting Magic Manual, which I'm just going to share again on my screen here. So if you go to my website and just click on free resources, this is the Manifesting Magic Manual. Click here. If you enter your information, you'll get an email to a link and a code, and it will bring you to this page, free stuff. You'll get all the free stuff. If you show up within a certain time, this may change in the next year, where I'll separate things out. And just as an awareness, I will be doing some workshops soon, virtual and in person. I'm in Connecticut. So please, if you are part of the free resources link, then most likely you are a part of my mailing list. But to be a part of my mailing list, you do have to sign up for the free resources, and you will get the quickest information about my workshops and when they come out. I will be doing confidence workshops, 3 hours, and then a 5-day or 5-week workshop where it's 2 hours each. So that'll be 10 hours in total. And I'm still working on the details for that, as well as I'll be working on the Manifesting Magic coming up as well after the confidence toolkit. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, just DM me and I will be here. Okay. Okay. Have a great day.